Hi, welcome back to our podcast.
Today we are talking with a good friend of ours, Jessica Riden. We've known Jessica for about 20 years. We met in our church, and she has inspired us and is still inspiring us. For me, Jessica, when I think about her, I think about the power of God to transform a life. I've seen Jessica go from literally one person to a new creation in Christ. And it's just been a privilege to watch that happen. Another thing I really admire about her is her sense of humor. She can laugh, and she's just a joy to be around. Her laugh is infectious. Proverbs 31 talks about a godly woman who can laugh at the future, and I just think that about Jessica. She just has a good sense of humor about people, about herself. She doesn't take herself too seriously. So she's just really fun to be around.
And for me, Jessica really inspires me. Basically, when you came in the church, it was rough, but you never let that stop you. Being a single mom, it was really encouraging because it was like you had made up your mind, no matter what, I'm going to get through this. And just being on the outside seeing that, it was really inspiring. And not only that, but just, she got to a point, but now, looking at her life now, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate you guys inviting me out and wanting to hear my story. I really appreciate it.
Well, so glad to have you. So let's just kind of start. I know a little bit about your background, and I know, you had some rough times even as a child. So
Yeah.
let's just kind of go back there. And so just tell us about your childhood. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Tell us about your family.
Okay. I'm from a small town in northeast Georgia, Stevens County, Toccoa, Georgia.
Hey,
Yeah.
Toccoa, Georgia. I'm actually from Toccoa, Georgia, too. And we never knew each other growing up, but yes.
You're quite a bit older.
Yeah.
You made it on our parents.
But, I grew up there. I was born and I was raised there from a small city outside of Toccoa called East Denali. So I was basically raised in the woods, just in the country, just country folks. I lived with my mom and my dad. My mom met my dad when she was 14, left her home and moved in with my dad and his family at the age of 15. Got pregnant with me at 16, had me at 17.
Wow.
So, I was born with very young parents, and I basically was just, it was just like they weren't real too careful with me, so I had a lot of experiences just chasing my dad when I was 3, he was going fishing, and I had to climb under some barbed wire fence all by myself to go find him, and Mama not knowing where I was, just was scared. But then when Daddy came back home with me on his shoulder, that's just how it was. I was always sneaking away, trying to find him wherever he was at.
Wow. What did you admire so much about him?
I think that he liked what I liked. I liked being outside. I liked being, he was wild, I was wild. He reminded me of, we have Indians in our family, so he was big on that. He acted like a wild Indian sometimes.
Yeah.
So he drank a lot, and we moved into I have pictures of this old beat up trailer that they moved into. It didn't have any running water, and Mama just having to struggle through that, and he drank a lot and chose sometimes to buy alcohol other than buy my milk, and so that was, but I didn't understand any of that. He just had a good time, and I was all about having a good time. So then from there, we moved into, they actually bought a trailer and some land, and it was all ours. And we moved out there. I was around 5 years old. And so, I spent a lot of time with my Nanny Bonnie too, and that was my dad's mom. But at the age of 5, you're curious, you're starting to get into some things, and piddling around one day, I came across some pornographic magazines and was exposed to that for the first time at the age of 5. So, not understanding what it was, but just having those images just seared into your memory, and not understanding it. But then, I can remember just a lot of parties being at my house, and a lot of drinking, fighting, but me being in my room, and not being around when everybody started fighting and stuff. We ended up losing that trailer, I think, from my dad's drinking, and we ended up moving into it was just a square cinder block house on this road. It was close. It was still in East Denali. And, that's when I really started noticing that something's not right. Something's not really right with my family. My mom would have like black eyes. One time I got in the car and there was some red stuff on the window, and I was like, what is that? And this ketchup. Well, it wasn't ketchup. It was blood. My dad punched my mom in the nose. So he would get drunk and he would just beat on her. And, that's when my sister, I was 8 years old, and that's when my mom got pregnant with my sister. So, my mom stayed. I think she just felt trapped.
Yeah.
And just having us, she really didn't have anybody to turn to. She couldn't turn to her family. But I noticed just a lot more fighting when I was 8 years old. And then we moved into a home in East Denali. My dad was working as a mechanic, and these people had a house on a farm, and we moved into there. My sister was born. I was 8. 2 years later, my mom had my brother. And that's when the fights and stuff started getting really bad. I didn't really have a lot of friends that came over, just one friend. I usually like to go outside the house and stay because it was just so contentious. Just all the fighting, it was just chaos all the time. Not to say there weren't good times, but as I was saying, when I was younger, me and my dad would get along. He was a great dad when he was sober.
Yeah.
But when he got drunk, it was like that wild Indian just came out, and he just wanted to fight.
Was that several times a week? Can you kind of remember?
Every day he would drink.
Oh, wow.
Every day he would come home. He would work to drink. So that would be, we didn't ever have much because what he did have, he spent. And so my mom worked, and, she made sure the bills were paid, that we had food. He grew a garden, so we would eat from the garden a lot and all that. And, just living in that home, and I loved him. And for some reason, me and my mom, she would be upset and mean, and I didn't understand why at the time. I just thought, she's just mean. But looking back now, I can tell, that she was dealing with a lot, a whole lot. And so from when I was 8 until I was older, the porn was still in the house. And that's when I was really, I would search it out. And that's when I found videos. And I would be watching it constantly, when I got home from school. And so I think from the age of 8 to 12, it had gotten really bad in my home. It was a lot of fighting. One night I had a friend over, and they were fighting, and it was really bad. And my mom was telling me to call 911. Call 911. So I did. I had to call the police on my dad. And that was hard. That was even though he was beating the crap out of my mom, it just broke my heart to have to, because he The police were like tackling him on the step. It was just this big, huge thing. So after that, she left him. And so that really did, when she got a divorce from my dad, that's when the splintering, that's just when everything just started going downhill from there. We moved to Toccoa. We lived over there off of Whitman Street.
Okay.
So I was the small white girl in the black neighborhood. Like I was the only white girl on the bus.
I know where Whitman is. Yes, I can see that.
And so if you knew my family, my dad and them, he was very, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but he was very racist. And so he would bring me home and have the huge rebel flag tied to his car.
So he didn't live on Whitman.
No.
That was with your mom. Okay. No. So he still lived out in East Denali.
Yes.
And this was with your mom.
He still stayed in that home. And I moved in with my mom.
Okay.
So my mom was trying to hold down a full-time job, 3 kids, me being a teenager, and coming into womanhood and having those thoughts and being exposed to just that whole side of that porn, that area, and then you start noticing boys and just living over there. And me and my mom just did not have a great relationship. Like when she divorced my dad, she wanted to go out and party. So she would leave me to babysit, and she would go, and it would just be different guys. And, that was just, at the time you thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Because, you don't have the she's not there.
Freedom.
You have freedom.
Yeah.
But then I have these kids that I have to take care of.
Yeah.
So now, how was your relationship with your dad after the divorce?
It was, we would go over there, but he would just be drinking.
Okay.
So just the alcohol had just taken over.
Right.
He would work. He was like a functional alcoholic. He would work just so he could support being an alcoholic. So
and one thing I think it's one of those things, because I grew up in the same type of environment, but it's almost like they're relaxing. It's like they use it to relax.
Yeah.
To where it was just a way of life.
So, and drugs was around the home, alcohol was around the home, abuse was around the home, but that's all they knew.
Right.
And that's all I knew. I didn't know a peaceful home. We never went to church. We never did. So I remember when we were living on that farm, I would walk across a huge pasture and go to this like little Baptist church when I was like 10 years old.
Wow.
And I was in the choir. They let me in the choir. And, just my home life and just, I remember I got baptized and I told my mom and she's like, why didn't you tell us? And I didn't even think about it. Yeah. But of course when you have to move away and they're not going to church, you don't have that support system at home. So, children that really go to church by themselves it's hard.
Yeah.
Now, did you have a lot of family outside come to visit and different things like that?
No.
Okay.
No, our family, my mom's side of the family didn't really want anything to do with us because of the drinking and the partying, and because that's what they were known for, the fighting and the drama and just the chaos. So I could probably count a handful of times I spent at her mom's house. I mean, I don't even call her grandmother. I just call her Carol. Now, my dad's mom, Nanny Bonnie, I spent a lot. That was like my little safe haven. Me and Nanny Bonnie.
Yeah.
She was my safe place where I could go and get away and just relax.
Yeah.
But she also, I mean, she gave me my first cigarette at 10 years old, so it was kind of like,
Yeah.
I would be driving the car at like 11 while she's drinking on the side. So, that's just the way I grew up.
But now that was in East Denali, right?
Yes,
Okay,
on
yeah.
the back roads
Yeah,
of East
yeah,
Denali.
yeah.
I would be driving her big old car, and she's sitting beside me drinking, and, I'm nowhere near time to get no driver's license.
Yeah.
But, that's just, I thought all that was normal.
Yeah.
That's...
Well, I'm sorry, but a friend of mine, he was driving when he was in the 6th grade. So in that
He lived in
area, he lived in East Denali.
But he was quite a bit taller than Jessica.
Yeah, he was like
He's like a giant.
6'1", 6'2" at the time. I mean,
Well, if
6th grade.
I can only imagine how me and my nanny Bonnie looked. It was probably something to behold for sure.
Yeah.
But that she was my safe place. But then when I started getting into the teenage years, now that's when, I was already smoking weed by then. Weed was in the house. I'd always been around it. So I'd started smoking weed, and then just boys. I think when you're younger and your parents divorce, and then when your dad kind of checks out with alcohol, you don't have a good home life with your mom. You start wondering, you want attention.
Right.
You want love, because you're just not feeling that. My mom, she was abusive to me, and I think that she was just stressed out, and I think she was just taking it out on me.
Right.
Now looking back, I don't hold it against her. She was just having a hard time.
Yeah.
But, when I was, I didn't have the best friends either that had best intentions of me as well. I had friends that was taking advantage of me and putting me in situations, just partying, sneaking out, the guys putting me in situations that, I could have just stayed at, I could have said no, I could have stayed at home, but, just wanting people to like you.
Yeah.
Wanting somewhere just to fit in and be wanted, that's just where, so as the teenage years start to roll around, I just really wanted to fit in. So just having experience with boys at the age of 14, and you really want to. Now, I teach my daughters, hey, you're worth something. You have dignity and worth. And when that's not taught, and all you have to lean on that is porn, and, that has no respect for women at all.
Right.
And you don't think of sex in a healthy way.
Right.
And you think it's not something that should be valued or kept or saved.
Yeah, and it's one thing when, you hadn't been raised with that,
No.
because it's almost like this is the norm,
Yeah.
and so, I can understand that, because, it's just like this is the norm, this is the way of life, and this is all we see, to where, 14, how did that kind of go from 14?
Well, I would say, I just never really enjoyed being a kid. I always tried to grow up
Right.
way too fast.
Right.
Just the movies I was watching, and it just, Dirty Dancing, the porn, just everything was just so hypersexualized.
Right.
And so just, I was in middle school. I was that girl. It wasn't the guys trying to push anything on me. It was me being forceful and just trying to, get this. I had this one guy I had a crush on, and I was just always just trying to get him. And he would be like, no, that's so backwards, Now what I'm thinking about is like, usually it's the guy trying to pressure you into But I was always trying to pressure him. But, I sit there thinking.
Well, just wanting to
"What's
feel
that?"
loved. I mean, that's how you.
Yeah, I
were
was
wanting acceptance and loved by somebody.
screaming on the inside.
Yeah.
When I think about those teenage years, 14, 15, 16, I was just all about, I just wanted to party. I wanted to party. I wanted the attention. Drugs. Drugs was a big thing for me. I think that was just like an escape. I would go to school high. I would take pills during the day. I never went to school. When I was 16 and I got a car, my daily schedule was I'd wake up, I'd act like I was getting ready for school. I'd go to McDonald's. I'd get a breakfast sandwich. I'd go sleep at the park. And then I'd go over to this guy's house and we'd smoke weed all day. So when I was 16, 17, my mom lived in Augusta. She moved to Augusta. She had got remarried. And I would be going back and forth. But when I lived with her, I ran away a lot. I ran away. I would meet people, grown men, and I'd run away. And I'd go stay with them, and then I would come back, And then this one time I ran away. I was gone. I would meet people. I'd go work, and I'd meet people and get people, guys' phone numbers and things like that. And so at 17, I left home. I was just tired of it, I really don't even know why I left that time, but I ran away, and I met up with this guy that I met I worked with him at the grocery store, and he came picked me up, and that's the time when I got pregnant with Corinne, my daughter. Okay. I was 17, and I ended up getting pregnant, and I was living in Augusta, and I was like, I went with him because I was like, I think I might be pregnant. And he was like, no, I don't think so, but we'll go take a test or whatever. And it came back positive immediately. And I was like, oh my God, What am I going to do now? So I was scared. And he begged me. He was like, I'll pay for get an abortion. And I just knew. I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I'm not, you don't have to be involved or whatever you want to do. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So I think I went to the health department and confirmed it and everything. And I stuffed all the papers they gave me under my mattress in my room because I went back home.
Yeah.
To my mom's house. And then I went and visited my dad with my brother and sister. We went up to Toccoa and we were visiting. And I guess she shook down my room and was searching. I don't know why she was looking, but she found those papers. And she called my dad and she told me, she said, you can't come back. And so then my dad, he begged me, he told me he would drive me, he'd pay for an abortion. And I just knew I couldn't do that. I just couldn't. I could not do that. And I just told him, because he knew I was pregnant by a black guy. Mm-hmm. And that was a big deal. And he was just so mad.
Yeah.
And so I lived with them. Mama wouldn't let me come back. And so I lived with my dad and my stepmom. He had got remarried, and she was a great woman.
Yeah. She
was really good. And, she tried to help me. And I think when I was about 8 months pregnant, my dad ended up getting drunk, and he came in my room and he had a belt, and he wanted to beat me, and my stepmom stopped him. I don't know if he would have or not.
Yeah.
But he would beat on her and all that, So I ended up getting an apartment on Kite Street, those little projects.
Live there too?
Okay. So, those on Kite Street, those little projects.
Yeah.
I moved in the day that I brought Corinne home from the hospital. So, you know,
Well, let me ask you this: when you said you couldn't, like as far as get rid of the baby, as far as having an abortion, what went through your mind at that time? Like what were you feeling?
I had the thought in my mind that I wasn't going to go to hell for nobody. I mean, I had that thought. Even though I was sleeping around and, doing all that, and my thoughts were nowhere near Jesus or getting saved or anything, but I knew that I knew that was murder.
So your conscience.
Yeah, I knew
Okay.
that was my baby, and and I loved that baby.
Yeah.
And I wanted that baby.
Yeah. No matter what everybody else said.
No, they begged me on all. I mean, everybody was so disappointed. Everybody was just, everybody was so embarrassed.
Right.
And it was just like, how could you do this to the family? How could you, only because she was going to be biracial. That was the only issue.
I was about to say, your mom had a baby young.
That was the only.
That was the main issue.
That was the main issue.
Yeah.
No,
And remember, this is rural Georgia
it is rural Georgia.
Yeah.
And
in the 90s.
they didn't raise me like that, whatever that is, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
That's just all who I hung out with, and that's who I felt comfortable
Yeah.
around. So, I had her, and my dad came up to the hospital, and he held her. And he was never mean to her.
Yeah.
He was never mean. Nor my mom. They never treated Corinne in any kind of way. But that I was still, so I was a young mom. I had her, I was 18 for 1 month. 1 month so me and her, we were living in that little apartment, and I had this loud beat up car, and I was working at Bell's restaurant, and I was just living my life. And I wish that the story was just happy ever after that. But, being young and being a single mom, so young, I was working. I was supporting us. I was paying my own bills.
Yeah.
Because I started in the little project apartment, and then I moved into a little townhouse apartment, and then I moved into a little bitty house.
Yeah.
And I was doing really well for myself. But, I was still smoking weed, but only on the weekends, only when Corinne was in the bed. And, I was responsible.
Yeah.
But I had got mad. I don't know why. I just kept thinking, why don't you just, you could go work in the clubs and make so much more money, and, you could, I don't know what I was thinking. But the guy that I was working for at Bell's had made me so mad one night that I just quit.
Yeah.
And I never should have did that.
Right.
And that night I quit. I drove to the club and got a job. And so then I started working in the clubs, and that's when life took a nosedive severely.
Yeah.
Those places are cesspools of drugs. It's just a gateway to.
And so here it is, as a mom trying to do your best.
Yeah.
The job was hard, but
Yeah.
then it's like, well, I can make more money here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the whole reason,
Yeah.
And, just thinking, just looking from our point of view, it's like you're trying to make a better life, but yet you didn't know it was going to take you down that road.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just didn't go get a better job somewhere else.
Right.
I think I tried working at it like a factory, but it just didn't work out. But so anyway, so here I go. I'm working. I have a babysitter. She's keeping Corinne. I'm working at night, and she's watching her for a little bit during the morning to where I can get some sleep. And so after Corinne was born, so I'm going to back up a little bit. So when Corinne was born, I went to the DFACS office to get child support. So the the people in Augusta, her dad they took a paternity test. Of course, they were hollering paternity test, and that's fine, that's okay. So she ended up, it comes back, she looks just like her dad. So, I don't see how he could have said she wasn't his, but, so once they found out that Corinne was theirs,
Right.
he lived with his mom. She wanted to spend a lot of time. She wanted to build relationship with Corinne. So when I told her that, I got a night shift job, I didn't tell her what I was doing, but, I got a night shift job, and she was always willing to babysit.
Right.
She was always willing to take her in. And that's good, but that's also a detriment.
Right.
When someone's willing to take your kids. It's being such a young mom and not really having a childhood. You want to let loose, you want to party. So she was like, well, just let her come down here and I'll watch her. And so she was down there with her spending time, and that's just when I really just got really wild. I started doing, I got introduced to cocaine and weed, and it was just like cocaine just overtook my life. I was just not thinking about anything else. I was working in the clubs. Corinne was taken care of, but she would come back home, and I don't know. I tried not to have her around stuff.
Right.
But I wasn't always successful doing that.
Yeah.
So, but then I ended up not paying the bills on that house that we were in, and so I ended up losing that house. And so I asked Corinne's grandmother if she could just come down there and stay for a little bit. She was like a year and a half. And while I get myself together, and what am I going to do? I was in a relationship. This guy had got out of prison, and he was living there with me. And relationships with guys from prison are not always the best.
Yeah.
But that was just a bad situation. As soon as he got out, he started cheating on me. It was a bit, big. Just...
So now, did he do drugs as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Everybody I was around, that's what we all did.
Okay.
So I ended up losing that house, and I packed up all my stuff in a U-Haul, and I was working in Seneca, South Carolina, with some girls, and they were like, "You can just move in with us." And so I said, "Okay." I got all my stuff in the U-Haul, and I moved in with those girls. And we were working in the clubs together. And we are partying 24/7. I mean, it just never stops. And this is where I get introduced to ecstasy.
Okay.
And that was I started taking ecstasy probably every day. And just the drinking and the ecstasy and the cocaine, I told the girls, I said, I got to be with my daughter. I got to go see her.
Right.
Because I called Brenda, that's Corinne's grandmother, and I told her, and she's like, yeah, just come on, you can move in with us. You can stay with me until you can get yourself together. And so I get in my U-Haul, and I drive to Augusta, and I move in with Brenda. And I actually got a job at Club Car, the place that makes the golf carts.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to do right. But, I still had this, I wasn't doing, I stopped doing ecstasy, but I still kept a coke problem, and I still smoked weed, and I still drank. So I moved to Augusta, and I'm working. And, of course, I'm a very flirtatious person. I craved attention. I always dressed to get attention, and I would go to work. I don't know. I bet those people thought I was crazy.
So at this time, did the grandmother know that you were doing drugs, or
She probably knew I was just smoking weed,
okay,
and that was it.
okay,
But she didn't want it in her house.
right,
And that's one thing. But I smoked cigarettes and things, but I smoked outside the house. I respected
okay,
what she wanted. And I was around 19 at this time. So I was working at Club Car, doing good. And then I was just like, I guess I just got so bored with it all. And guys were giving me so much attention at Club Car. And I was like, I would tell them, I was working in the clubs. And they were like, well, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that now? And I was like, I don't know. But so here I go with another bright idea of quitting my job, going to work in the clubs in Augusta. And so that I made another bright decision of doing that again. I didn't tell her grandmother that I quit working. I just told her that I got another late night job. Do you mind watching Corinne? And so I started working in the clubs again. And me and Corinne's grandmother were just, I would go over there and I was like, I got to get out of this house too. So I met a guy at the club. He was the bouncer. And I left Corinne's grandmother's house and I was living in a hotel. And me and Corinne were there. 'Cause I didn't want her watch. It was just a whole control thing. She always, it was like Corinne was her kid. But I wanted Corinne. I didn't want her to take my kid. I wanted Corinne. So I took her. We were staying in a hotel, and Corinne's dad's cousin was watching her for me. Because she had a daughter, and Nyla, and her grandmother, Corinne's grandmother, would watch her, and she actually raised Nyla. And her mom was like, Brenda will take your kid if you let her. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want her to take my kid. So I moved. I was living in the hotel, and me and the bouncer guy were talking. He was like, well, I have an extra room. You can come stay at my house. And I was like, okay. All right. And so me and Corinne, we started staying over there. And so me and him ended up getting in a relationship, and but I was still doing drugs, and that's, I started back doing ecstasy again because people were selling it right in the club. So it was just always there.
right,
And we would always go to the bathroom. We would do it. Just cocaine, everything was just there. And me and him, everything was all right. We got a house together. We were just doing drugs together. And, but we were holding it together. We were paying bills. I was with him for about 2 years.
okay,
And, then I started doing a little bit too much drugs, more than what he liked. And so we ended up splitting up, and I stayed in the home where we were living, and Corinne was with me. But then once me and him got out of that relationship, I was just, I thought I really loved the guy. So I was just heartbroken. So he was still working in that one club. They moved me to another one. So, of course, he starts talking to the bartender of the club I was working at. And that just tore me up. So I just really threw myself into the drug use then, just again, I'm not good enough again. I'm not, here it goes again. I'm just not good enough. Why can't I just not be good enough? Why can't people love me? Why can I not find someone that just loves me? Why can I not have that happy story?
right,
And so I took Corinne back over to her grandma's. I just was tired. I was tired, and I was trying to deal with the breakup, trying to deal with being a mom, trying to deal with paying bills. And I met up with me and this girl. We were working in the club together. And, she was a heavy drug user. Heavy. And so that's when I started. She introduced me to some people. We started doing meth, and it was just meth, coke, ecstasy. It was just all the time. And so I ended up losing that home. People broke in my home. They stole my bed. They stole my couch. They stole everything that I had. And, I can remember just being like, God.
Yeah.
I even think they stole my dog. It was just like,
Oh, wow.
They trashed my house. The police were over there, and at that point, I just gave up. I just gave up. I moved in with this girl, and that's when everything just got crazy. It was just party 24/7. I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
One binge, I think I was up for 7 days straight.
Oh, wow.
I can remember talking, but people looking at me like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But I was like, I thought I was completely normal, but at that time, I wasn't thinking about Corinne. I would miss her, but the pull of the drugs was stronger than
So about how long did that go on?
any instinct. So that was probably from 21 to 22.
Okay.
Because I remember turning 21 in the club, and I got so drunk that night that me and this guy started fighting.
Oh, wow.
In the club, and the police were called. He got arrested. This is how bad it was. We went to court, and I was sitting beside this guy. I was still with the bouncer guy, and I was talking to the guy beside me, and then when he left, he was like, "You don't know who that is, do you?" And I was like, "No, who's that?" He was like, "That's the guy that you got into the fight with." But my mind, I didn't even...
Yeah.
Wow.
I was so out of it.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I'm living in this home with this girl, and she's crazy. I mean, not just drugs crazy. This chick is crazy. I mean,
So she outdid you.
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
She's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
We were doing drugs and drinking one night. She left with some guys or something and came back and was all crazy. I don't know what happened, but she pulled a knife on me. Now, her daughter and Corinne are in the bedroom. And I'm in the door frame where the girls are, because I want to, I'm protecting the girls.
Right.
This chick is crazy. She pulls a knife on me, and I'm just like, what am I doing? And just being around people like that, just living that type of lifestyle. You think, one time I thought I was overdosing on drugs. I did some coke, and it tasted so weird, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And, in these instances, I cried out to God. I knew.
Yeah.
In that instance. But because I always had a feeling, I was always kind of sensitive about things of God, but not just, I don't know. But when you're faced with death, like there was this time I thought this guy was driving crazy and on a dirt road at night, and he was drunk, and I thought we were going to wreck. And, I was just praying.
So what do you think changed it all, or what was the changing point?
So my life was so out of control at that point. I'm living with this crazy chick. I don't have a house. My car's tore up. I don't have a job. I have no money. I'm living at her house, and I just checked out. You know, I stayed in the room for like 3 weeks. Just give me drugs. That's all I wanted. Just, I'm sitting there in the room, and a Johnson & Johnson commercial came on about a mama and her daughter. Now, but yeah, I hadn't seen Corinne. I don't know.
Oh wow.
It was probably like 6 to 9 months. I didn't see her. And
Okay, so at that point she was back with the grandmother.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So she would she would come over and visit, but I didn't want her over there.
Right. Right.
And I didn't have the willpower to leave and go anywhere else
Okay.
because, you know, the drugs were free.
Right.
And I just didn't feel like, I just felt trapped. So I saw this commercial about a mom and her baby, and I just broke down, and I just started crying, and I said, God, you got to get me out of this situation. You got to get me out of this house. I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
And the next day, I don't even know how my mom got this girl's phone number. I don't even know how my mom got. I don't even know. But my mom called me and said, Jessica, I'm coming to get you.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I knew God had answered my prayer.
Wow.
And so she comes to Augusta. I call Brenda. I say, I'm moving back with my mom. I'm going to get my life. You know, I just got to get away from Augusta. I had ended up getting arrested twice. I was going to jail. My life was completely out of control.
Yeah.
So my mom came and got me, and I moved in with her. I went up to visit in Toccoa. I met Jaden's dad. I moved in with him. You know, you don't even know these people, and you're moving in with them.
Right.
So, you know, but then when I moved back with my mom, when I found out I was pregnant again, I told her, bring Corinne up here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to finally, you know, I'm going to have 2 kids. I'm going to work a job. And then I wanted to be a mom. I wasn't doing any of those hard drugs anymore.
Okay.
I was just smoking weed and drinking. And so I got an apartment down the street from her. And I ended up getting a job at Burger King. I didn't tell them I was pregnant. And so I started working there, and I was paying my bills. Corinne was with me. She started school. And then I had Jaden. And then I was just working at Burger King. So that's, you know, I was still drinking every day.
Yeah.
Though. But just still, you know, just still so lonely, and just still so, just always feeling like you always had to have a man. That's where your worth came from.
Right.
You wasn't worth anything unless you had a man, unless you were in a relationship. I just couldn't be myself.
Right.
I just felt like you always had to perform or do this or do that, you know, just for somebody to want you. So, you know, me and Jane's dad, we did get back together. Mm-hmm. And, but he didn't want to, you know, he still drank a lot. And so one night I was up there visiting with Jaden. He was an infant, you know, and this girl bust through the door and just started snatching his like PlayStation and stuff because that was hers. And I was just sitting there thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, what am I doing? So, you know, I'm working at Burger King, and that's where I meet Deontay. But I knew him when I was pregnant, and I couldn't stand him. I would cuss him out every single day.
He would come into Burger King?
He worked there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he worked with me. But he was just very nonchalant and, you know, be laughing, and I think that would make me even madder.
So, okay. So now who is Deontay?
Deontay, he was a young man that I worked with at Burger King, and he actually invited me out to Victory Chapel.
Okay, to church. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
to church.
Okay.
Because I was, after I had Jaden, I didn't hate him as much. I don't know if it was just because I was pregnant or he was always getting on my nerves or what was going on. But yeah, we were talking one day and he was like, I was just telling him about some things in my life, how things were, I knew that God had helped me in some situations and that I knew God was real.
Yeah.
And but he was like, well, why don't you come on out? Just come on out to Victory Chapel, and see what God will do. And I was like, oh, okay. And I ended up going. And I don't know how long it took me to actually go to church. But the funny thing is, I had been thinking about, why don't you just go to church?
Yeah.
Just go to. It was like God was drawing me, but
Yeah.
I didn't know. Because church was on my mind a lot. Because I lived down Tallahassee Road. And in the curve, there's a church that sits on the right side.
Yeah.
And I always thought about going there just to visit. And it's so funny because after I came to Victory Chapel and after I got saved, the very next day, those people from that church came to my house and invited me out. But I'd already gone to Victory Chapel.
Yeah.
So I went and I visited. Corinne was at her grandma's.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know if it was the summertime or I can't remember when, but
So did you notice a difference after you said you got saved? Did you notice a difference?
well, I had prayed the prayer
Mm-hmm.
because Pastor Wiktorski was preaching that day, and he had made some kind of joke or whatever, and I bust out, started laughing, and because it was just the funniest thing, and I was there thinking, God, this is fun. People think that church is so boring, or they go there to sleep, and
Well, but now, Pastor Wiktorski, that's a show within itself. So
yeah, he had made some joke about religious people or something. It was so funny.
yeah,
But I can remember just Bonnie sat beside me, and they took Jaden. I don't even know these people, and he took Jaden in his car seat to the nursery.
yeah,
I was like, but he was only 6 months old.
okay,
And I can just remember after I prayed that prayer, it was like just bricks lifted off my shoulders,
Yeah.
But honestly, I had no intentions of ever coming back.
right,
I just, you hear, you pray prayers, and yeah, nothing ever really happens.
So what happened from that point on?
Oh man. Well, Bonnie and them had came to the house, because my house was made in such a way I had no front windows. So if somebody came knocking on the door, I'd have to go all the way to a room and look, and I really couldn't see because I had big bushes in front of that window. And somebody knocked on the door, and I was like, who's at my door? I'm drinking beer. I have my beer over here. I'm still smoking weed. I'm still drinking beer. After I had prayed, and so I opened the door, and it's Bonnie, and I'm like, hey. She said, hey.
Want a beer?
I think Bonnie was the perfect person to follow up on me.
Yeah,
Had it been anybody else, I probably would have been super uncomfortable. She was so relatable
yeah,
to me. I mean, I don't keep a perfect tidy house, and neither did Bonnie. So I was like, but she came over, and they were talking, and I was like, she said, we just wanted to invite you back out, and blah da 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 da, and I was like, okay. So I came like on Wednesdays for a long time. I never would come on a Sunday morning. Just people would make me nervous, and so I came back, and I think what really made the paradigm shift in my life was when I finally, I was still seeing Jaden's dad,
okay,
and we were still together. But when I was over there, and I told him, I said, I want to go to church. Come with me. And he was like, no, I want to go. Let's go to this party. And I said, no, I want to go to church. And I drew the line, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to try this and see what happens. I've tried everything else. Everything else is from the drugs. It ruined my life. I ran away from reality for so long. It was time to, I just wanted peace.
Yeah.
I just had no peace ever.
Yeah.
My whole childhood, no peace. Teenage years, no peace. Early adult, just no peace. I just wanted peace in my life.
Yeah.
And, I think that when I chose Jesus over that old life, I think God really enabled me to say no, because I had never stood up for myself, and I never said no.
Wow.
I never, that's the story of my whole life. I always let people run over me. I never said no. And I finally was able to be like, you know what? No,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing. And, I just, after that point, I just never looked back.
Yeah.
It was just like I could be myself. I don't think after I really surrendered and I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking weed, because smoking weed right there at the end, I was starting to get super paranoid. I mean, I didn't even like smoking weed with nobody no more. It was just so I just got rid of all of that. And then I noticed, I was like, dang, I ain't even said no cuss words.
Yeah.
It was like when you spend all those years putting so much dirt and garbage in your heart that's just, you eat, sleep, and breathe garbage. To have something, because you go into church and you think, God, these people would never accept me. Why would God want me?
Yeah.
Look how dirty I was. It took me a long time to really believe that God could forgive me for all that stuff I done,
Yeah.
because it was a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, still today, I won't tell everybody, everything,
Right,
because
right.
not even Wallace,
Yeah.
it had gotten pretty bad. But just to be wanted.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry. So I think just to be wanted,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so, and accepted.
And you had mentioned earlier about, teaching your daughters now, they're valuable. Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
what you felt? Not that you're worthy, but you are valuable and you have dignity.
Oh, yeah. So being able to, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So Corinne was 5 when I got saved, and Jaden was 6 months. And just teaching her, I wasn't a perfect parent, but just being able to teach her, you're valuable, you're wanted,
Yeah.
I love you, let me give you a hug.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Yeah.
My mom, God bless her soul, but she didn't know how to deal with me. I would be sneaking out and just being called a whore and trash by your mom. It's just really hard. So, when you're raised like that and that's all that you think about yourself, I mean, why would you think that anybody would value you?
Yeah.
So, being able to raise them in a Christian home was amazing. Having her in church, I never had that.
Yeah.
And,
From what I remember, you were there every time the doors were open.
oh my God, I was there before the single guys were there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be
You'd be waiting in the parking
busting
lot.
the door down.
Yeah.
And Pastor LaValle even mentioned over the pulpit, how can this single mom that has to get 2 kids ready beat you guys, and all y'all got to get ready is yourselves?
Yeah.
It was just like, it was just so new, and I felt clean for the first time in my life.
Yes.
And so that's what, for me, that's what I saw, being that single mom. And it was just like, I'm not quitting. I'm going to get through this.
Yeah, I was determined. And yeah, I think it was the love of the ladies around me and the love that Jesus just showered on me. It was like his grace, man. It was just so tangible.
Yeah.
And just I didn't even think the same.
Yeah.
And I can remember, like, right after I got saved, I was still working at Burger King. And, guys it was a temptation for me. Okay,
Right.
so I can remember working the drive-thru, and this guy came through the drive-thru. He looked like he was out of a magazine. I mean, this guy was...
Yeah.
He had the muscles and just the face, and he was just, like, flirting with me and wanted to get my phone number, and I was sitting there thinking, like, this is from the devil. I just knew it immediately. It was just like, I knew I had knew that hell sent that guy, because there was no way,
Yeah.
Now that's a transformation. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. And there was just no way I thought this guy would ever want to, he just looked like a magazine guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, can I get your number? And he said, you got a man? And I said, yeah, I got a man. Jesus is my man. And
Yeah.
he was like, that is so, I don't even know what he said. But I remember him coming back through the drive-thru, and he had a girl in the car with him. And I was sitting there thinking, typical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So typical. So, one thing that I can say for young women that get saved is that, those temptations, they will come.
Right.
And your old life will come knocking. I can remember, right after I prayed to get saved, one of my old drug buddies called me at Burger King. How she knew I worked there, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I can think is she was inspired by hell. And she wanted to get together. And I was like, okay, we can get together. And you can meet me up here at Burger King. And I told her, and, she sat down thinking it was just going to be like old times. But I told her about Jesus, and I
Yeah.
got saved. I never heard from her again.
Yeah.
So, it's those, temptations will come. Things will happen.
Right.
The old life will try to come knocking again.
Well, you say, you said that to single Christian women,
Yeah.
but what would you say to that mother out there that's trying to,
Yeah, being
make it.
a single mom is hard. And I tell Wallace now, I can hardly be a mom now. And and I was like, how in the heck did I do this how did I work full time?
That's what I've always wanted to know.
How did
How
I
did you
work
do it?
full time and take care of these babies and all I can think of is that's just the grace of God,
Yeah.
because
It's funny. I think when we get to heaven one day, I hope God has videos of these times. Like, God, how did I do that? And then we see him. He was just like helping us in ways we had no idea.
yeah, but around the same time that I got saved, there was some more single moms in the church. And this might not be for everybody because it's hard, but we moved in together. And it was hard.
Right.
There was 5 kids. There was 4 adults. It was just a bunch of people all the time, but we helped one another.
Yeah.
And we had the strength of, Pastor LaValle. He was there. Cheryl was there. Everybody in church, the other couples in church, married couples. It was just like everybody surrounded us
Yeah.
and helped us. And it was just incredible. I would go visit my family, and it would just be so uncomfortable being there, where it would be so fun. But now I can see it for what it really is. and that this lifestyle is killing you.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to kill you.
So when your family seen the change,
They were not happy. They did not like me.
oh wow.
They had rather have me the way I was. Yeah. They did not like being around me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, well, what's different?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, I tried to be around them. I tried to talk to them. I tried to love them. I tried to really mend the relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
And we have. And we have. And, you know, my dad ended up passing away in 2015. But I was always just trying to be a witness
Yeah.
and just love him.
Yeah.
Whatever he did with that was his decision. So, but, you know, after just living for God, I can just tell you those single moms out there, it's hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, they need support.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you don't have to have a man or a relationship like that. You don't have to have that.
Right.
You know, you have value, you have worth. Those children need you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I would change is, you know, that I did was after I got saved, I spent a lot of time on and these aren't bad, on out-of-town outreaches and doing things, but I was still leaving my kids. If I had anything to go back, I would just spent more time with them.
Yeah.
Because I was
That's
just,
what we were used to. So that was just kind of a habit.
yeah,
formed.
that was a habit. So I just didn't realize. But now looking back, I wish I would have spent more time with them
Yeah.
while they were younger.
And so what you're saying is like just even being in the church, that was now your new support group.
Oh yeah,
Your family.
oh yeah, they
Yeah.
were my family.
Yeah.
Because you know I could depend on them more than I could depend on my family.
Yeah.
My family, you know, I love them, but they just haven't, you know, my mom, she really helped me out in that one instance.
Yeah. Well, you said, you know, God moved through her to touch you.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And so when you think about just even in that, God was able to move through her
Yeah.
to show you he was real,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And he's had a lot of grace. And I think it's just been the prayers over her. He's
Yeah.
had a lot of grace over her life,
Yeah.
whether she admits it or not.
Yeah.
But
Now, I do remember you mentioned Burger King. I want you to tell the story of how you got a different job when you were working at
Oh,
Burger
yeah.
King. I love this story.
so I was working at Burger King, and see, I told you that I had to go to court, and I ended up getting convicted of that felony drug possession.
Okay.
So I have a felony on my record. And I thought, oh my God, I'll never be able, I always have to be limited to Burger King. I'll have to just work these dead-end jobs. They're not,
Yeah.
I say dead-end, but, you know, if that's what you can do, then that's where you work. But I just decided that I was going to be the best Burger King worker I could be.
Yeah.
And this lady would come through the drive-thru every day, and she would order a Cinna-Minis and a Dr. Pepper with no ice. I still remember that. And
For breakfast. That's gross.
for breakfast. And she mentioned to me, she was like, have you ever thought about working at a bank? And I was like, you know, I didn't tell her, but I'm sitting there thinking, no. But,
Convicted felon. You know,
yeah,
so-
right. And I'm only 2 years post conviction. Like
Okay.
it's fresh.
Yeah.
It's new. So, you know, because this lady that was in our church named Shauna, she did introduce me to this doctor one time. He was getting his own practice and he needed a receptionist. And this was before the bank. And I mean, I was so excited. It was a OBGYN practice. I always wanted to be around, you know, I loved just to be around stuff like that. Pregnant women and all that. And I can remember just calling him just relentlessly. And he's like, God, you're so persistent. And I was like, well, I really feel like I could do this. And I thought God was going to open that door.
Yeah.
But I ended up not getting it, and I was devastated.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I really thought that God was going to open that door. But he ended up opening the door to the bank. I mean, I filled out the application, and of course it asked you, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And I wrote like 5 paragraphs of just like my testimony on this application. And telling them, I'm not like that anymore. And, you can test my hair. You can give me a drug test every week. I'm not like that. I mean, I'm happy.
So when you said you wrote all that down, was the U-Haul in that as well?
So the U-Haul. So, okay.
I'm sorry.
So I'll just tell that real quick. After I moved to Augusta, we ended up, me and Corinne's dad, we drove that U-Haul to a U-Haul drop-off place and just left it there with the keys in the middle of the night.
This is before security cameras everywhere.
I never heard nothing about it.
Wow.
I have never heard, and to this day, I have no idea.
Never got a bill.
I never got a bill.
So now how long did you keep it for?
I kept that thing for 3 months.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, so.
Well,
Okay, wait, okay.
So now if
wait,
you're
wait,
out
wait.
there.
Now, go back to the bank.
Okay.
Okay. So I ended up, and I, when I went in for the interview, and I told them, I said, look, I know I'm a convicted felon, but if you guys would just give me a chance, just give me a chance and just see how it works out. And so they hired me. And I was so happy to go take that drug test. And that lady was like, I have never seen anybody so happy to go take a drug test. And I was like, I know, because I can pass.
Yes.
Without bringing pee with me or whatever. I was, all that stuff. So,
wow.
I ended up getting a job at the bank.
So now how long did you work there?
And they gave you keys.
I worked myself up from a part-time teller to the senior teller position. So I was in management. I had the keys to the bank and the vault.
Wow.
Which I thought that was so funny.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Because knowing me and I would just be laughing to myself as I'm opening this vault. I'm just like, I can't believe this, that I got the keys to the bank, and it just blew my mind.
Yes.
So thinking back, they didn't pay a whole lot at all. It was like a little bit above minimum wage.
Yeah.
But at the time,
Just the dignity of having that, though.
yeah, from going to $6 to $8, it was
Yeah.
like, whoa, I'm in the money. But I can remember just working there, and the lady was like, you're gonna have to go get some more professional looking clothes. And I was like, man, it hurt my feelings. I just started crying, because I was like, dang, I don't have anything else. But I was like, so that lady, Michelle, she was my supervisor. She really did help me to really develop. She really did. It was like God was using her to develop my just professionalism and, stop looking like a deer in headlights and, just just relax and how to deal with different situations. And I was like, because, I'm so used to running. That was my thing.
Well, I can
Running
remember that look as well. Like deer in the headlights. Like
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it was, I just couldn't believe that how my life was it was just incredible. I was so happy
Yeah.
just to relax. Like I would come to church. I didn't have to worry about the guys hitting on me or, trying to get my phone number or having to perform for anybody because I could just be myself.
Yeah.
And so that, a lot of healing, do you still think about the past? Yeah. You still carry that baggage with you.
Right.
But it doesn't have to define who you are.
Yeah. And it's amazing now because you're a new person.
Yeah.
And
There's sometimes, you think back and you're like, God, it is where God has brought me. I didn't think I would ever get married. I didn't think anybody would want me. Just I just felt, you just feel like so used up.
Yeah.
And I was only 23,
Wow.
Yeah.
and I felt like I was just so used up.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the world does. The world will just use you up and spit you out, and it doesn't care about you.
Yeah.
So, it was just a breath of fresh air for people to really just have your best interest at heart.
Yeah. And just, that love that you were looking for
Oh, God.
for all those years, Jesus was it.
He was it.
Yeah.
You spend so much time running. Because I can remember right after me and that guy in Augusta broke up, I was driving drunk, and I just floored it. And the Christian radio station just popped up. And I remember just punching the radio. I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear it, because I don't know. But it's like God chases you,
Yes.
and He does. He chases us, and He helps us. You might not think He does, but He really does move situations around to where you can hear the gospel. I mean, it's amazing. When I look back now, you look back over the years, and it's just like, wow, He had His hand in so much.
Yeah.
Even allowing me to go through a whole bunch of crazy stuff,
Yeah.
and just my decisions. But I think that just makes you more thankful for what you got.
Yeah. Well, just even seeing how God would always deal with your conscience, around your kids and different things like
Yeah.
that. And, but then not having the power with all the drugs, but then God steps in and begins to show you He's real. And then one thing led to another, and here we are.
Yeah, because when I was living in sin, I was very interested in like the occult and Ouija boards and things like that. So just I think opening yourself up to stuff like that, it just opens
makes it
the door.
worse.
It makes it worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does. It makes it worse, and the people that you surround yourself around, it just makes it can just make a bad situation even worse.
Yeah.
But just seeing where God has brought me, and has it been just a ferry boat ride to Never Never Land? No, it has not. But I know that He has me.
Yeah.
Even when tough times have came,
Yeah.
He has kept me.
Yes.
And have I always been successful responding correctly? Probably not. But
Who have?
but He has kept me.
Yeah.
This 20 years,
Wow.
it's unbelievable.
Wow.
I never done anything for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, thank you again for coming. Thank you for being vulnerable, because this is really going to help some young girls who are going. There's so many young girls now on drugs, dealing with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
What young girl doesn't want a boyfriend? What young girl is not looking for love? So your story is really going to help a lot of people. I know it's hard to be vulnerable, though, so I really appreciate you doing that. And
You're so welcome.
And, we're to the point in your story before you even meet Wallace. We haven't even talked about Wallace yet.
Yep.
So more to come on that. We're going to talk to our other great friend, Wallace, next. And then we're going to have them back together, talk about their fun-loving marriage. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
A lot of good stories in store for that one. So, again, thank you so much. And we
it
just
was
really
my pleasure.
appreciate your honesty and all the great stories.
Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate you guys having me out.
Yeah.